when the only applause that you'll listen for at the end is your own? What job would you do? What performance? Is it a song? Is it a podcast? Is it being a lawyer? Is it being a doctor?
Yeah.
Would you be a doctor if no one ever said thank you to you and you didn't get the prestige, right? And you didn't get the money?
Yeah.
Because what that reveals to you, that question, what would you perform for an audience of none, is what are you intrinsically interested in?
In 1837, Horace Mann created the education system, a system at the time designed to pump out factory workers and professors. The same system that is still being used today in the 21st century. Now, Mann's system is backfiring. We are being moulded by the same industrial system that has existed for close to 200 years. That system delivers us into a digital economy that has no need of our outdated skills. This isn't our teachers' fault. This isn't the government's fault. This is due to a rapidly changing world full of technology and unforeseen circumstances. And us Gen Zs are caught in the middle. Welcome to the Driven Young Podcast, the podcast for stressed, overwhelmed young Australians, teaching you practical life skills you can implement now to set yourself up in life. And now your host, Byron Dempsey.
Welcome back to the Driven Young Podcast. If you are a regular listener, you may have heard me briefly speak about a project involving a retreat and a book I'm currently working on. Recently, I was introduced to a guy who is running a retreat with 9 other people. The goal of the retreat is to go away together, and we are writing a book for advice we would give to our 18-year-old selves, which is essentially what this podcast is all about, the advice I would give to my younger self. Today's guest is the man who ran the retreat, Mr. Joe Wehbe. Joe is a psychology student turned non-for-profit worker turned real estate agent turned business owner and connector. He is a close friend of mine, and in today's chat, I would say there are 2 parts to this episode. Part 1, we spend time discussing what to do after school. Joe shares his experience with university, and we get into why we think society is pushing us into careers we don't enjoy. We talk about how Joe got a high ATAR and felt like his identity was wrapped up in his marks, causing him to give up on his dream of filmmaking. Part 2 of this episode, we dive into some amazing and simple concepts that will literally change your life. I don't say this lightly, but I have used these concepts in my life, and it has definitely changed my life. We discuss the 1,000 doors concept, why you need to focus on an audience of none, as well as many others. If you enjoy this episode or you enjoy the show, please consider leaving a review. I don't make any money off the show, and I work on it full time, and leaving a review will really help me out. Also, feel free to DM me on Instagram. I'm super responsive there, and I love to chat with you all. Now, over to Joe. Joey, welcome so much to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, mate.
Super excited about this conversation we're going to be having. So I just had Tyler on yesterday, and we kind of mentioned that me and Tyler met at the retreat.
Yep.
And this was a retreat that you ran.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get into that a little bit. And I want to talk about some stuff that we learned there, and just some awesome takeaways I got from that, and deep dive into a lot of what goes on in your brain. And before we get into that, I'd love to know a little bit about your story. Specifically, I'd love to know what you did after high school and kind of, what that pathway was like and what you're up to right now.
Yeah. Great. So I left school 2012. It's a while ago now. And I think, like you, was really actually passionate about film. So, I started off looking to get into that. But at the time, I had a kind of good mark. My ATAR was good, was always going to be good. So everyone was kind of like that seed of like, you should study something, you should have a backup, blah, blah, blah. At first I was like, nah, I'm just going to go hammer and tongs. But then I kind of got a bit afraid, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to study something. So I started doing a Bachelor of Psychology out of school, just thinking, I'll breeze through that, and I'll have plenty of time to do my film on the side. And then just the opposite happened. So I felt myself getting sucked into uni. And then I never really, to my regret, really gave my kind of dream back then a good shot. Just fast forwarding, I had some pretty kind of, I'd say, dead years at uni. I felt like I was just going through the motions. It definitely didn't fit me. The degree was very research based. It was a lot more work than I'd anticipated or been told. I really had no idea what I was getting into. And it was actually it was very far from ideal. And I feel like I can never get those years back. I'm not sure if that's completely at the uni's fault or mine. I'd say there's, it takes 2 to tango. But then, just getting further away from that, I was just felt like I didn't know what I was doing, going through the motions. And then just things changed all of a sudden. So it was quite funny. And I have a big thing about, non-linear and random things opening doors for you. But I was meant to do an honours year in 2016, and I'd got the marks, which were high. You have to get a high average. Got the marks, got in. But then 2 weeks out from semester, the uni contacted me, said there was an admin error. I shouldn't have actually been accepted because of some other requirement. And that I couldn't do honours. And that'd been my whole year was like...
working towards getting honours.
Yeah. So I was like, I feel like I lost a year of my life because I could only do one subject that year. You can't start honours halfway through a year. So I had to wait till the next year. So I was like, what am I going to do? At the same time, a friend of mine who'd started a non-profit in Nepal called From the Ground Up. And, his story separately is incredible. Hardly knew him at the time, but he came back to Australia from Nepal to like kind of mobilize and formalize this little non-profit he'd started. And we only knew each other a little bit, but I had time on my hands and I was like, yeah, man, I can help you some fundraising stuff. I'm not a very hands-on person. He was doing a lot of building and all that, but, I'd love to help. And then basically, from there, I just started doing that with him and loved it. And I never went back to uni. And then, from there, I've just taken all these different, more entrepreneurial, I guess, opportunities and pathways, real estate, stuff like that. A lot of the stuff we've kind of started doing recently, like with the retreat. But it's been this weird spiraling journey. I've hopped through all these weird little, from film to psychology, non-profit, real estate. But it's a really good taste
awesome.
of life so far. But
do you think, because you mentioned you got pretty good marks at school, and do you think you got good marks and you felt like you had to use those marks? Because you don't need good marks for film.
No, you didn't.
Spielberg, none of them
you
go,
didn't.
oh, yeah.
I mean, I was never under the
marks.
impression that I needed great marks. I wanted to get great marks because I think I put a lot of my identity in that. A lot of people looked at me as that guy, the high achiever tag. And I think there's a lot of downsides to that tag, actually.
100%.
Which I've talked to some people about since. When I got to uni, I wasn't as high an achiever at all.
Yeah.
And then I felt like, I suck. So it took a real hit. But yeah, I think it wasn't necessary at all, but then the obligation to use those marks. Yeah, I remember one friend said to me, if you're going to get good marks, can you just give the marks to me?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be a little bit shy of my degree. That was obviously like a very funny way of looking at it, but I think you kind of, more from other people's perspective, you get pressure from them.
100%.
Because they're looking at what you have, which for most people is what they need. They could have chosen any degree, I guess. And they just see it's such a shame and they project that onto you. And it's actually, it's not easy. Yeah,
especially if you get the marks that they wanted and they need, like, say you need a 90 out of 100 score to get into a certain degree and you got that and you're only going into a degree that's like 70. I actually heard an example of this. My mum was saying her friend has a daughter and she is studying primary school teaching and she got like an 85 or 90 ATAR. Yeah. To be a primary school teacher, you only need like a 70 or 75 or something. Yeah. And they're like, well, why are you doing primary school teaching when you got an 85? It's like, what do you mean why? It's because that's what she wants to do. She's passionate and she wants to help kids and she wants to go into primary school teaching.
Can we unpack that for a second? Because I think we look at what are those cutoff marks a function of? Well, they're a function of demand.
Yes, 100%.
Right? So to be a physio at Sydney Uni, in my year was like, you had to get like a 98. It's like, it's a sophisticated career and job, but you could be a lawyer somewhere else, which is seen as more prestigious, blah blah blah. It's just a function of demand. So what that message is saying, in like, if you got this mark, you should do this. We're literally saying to people, you should do the most sought after thing. Yeah. Because you got a higher mark.
Because you can.
That's literally what we're saying.
Yeah.
In no uncertain terms. That's bewildering, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we think about it.
And crazier, we go even crazier with the physio. My best friend is studying design. So she's doing design. Yeah. Illustrator, iPad, drawings. Like it's art, not art, but it's design. Yeah. You need a 92 ATAR to get into her degree. In what world does an ATAR represent how good you are creatively or like your school marks represent how good you are creatively at design and stuff? No. But why is that? It's because there's massive demand to get into this course. Yeah.
Well, look at it from the other perspective, because I'm certainly not bashing what you're talking about, artists, school, physio. Why should someone have to get a 98 ATAR to become a physiotherapist is the other way I look at it. I mean, it's absurd. Like,
Yeah.
that's cutting out a lot of people that would make amazing physios that now have to spend all this time doing all these different pathways sometimes to get in if they really want to do it.
And the only reason they couldn't get in is because they didn't fit within society's standards of smart or being intelligent, which is tests.
Yeah.
And as we both kind of agree on, that's not a great representation of how smart you are. And no one, there's so many successful people who never graduated uni or never even went to uni. I think the big one people use is Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think Richard Branson, Oprah Winfrey, like we could list for on and on about people who didn't go down this way.
Yeah, there's a selection bias with those stories are very glamorized as well.
100%,
and I say that very measured because my experience at uni was not at all positive. So I'm being the devil's advocate, trying to keep a broader perspective, but it's a function of what are they actually measuring. So degrees hold for ransom a certification you need to do the thing you want to do. And they hold that for ransom, rightly or wrongly. And they use testing to kind of measure your competency to get that certification. So does that certification reflect how good you'd be at that job?
No.
So does doing tests and assignments indicate that you're going to be a good physio or lawyer, blah, blah, blah? Or does it indicate that you're good at processing notes from lectures and, writing an essay.
Or exam technique. Like my dad has really good exam technique. He tried to pass it on to me and teach me. I just couldn't pick it up.
Yeah.
I was the opposite. I was really good in class asking questions, but as soon as I got an exam, I was like, just passing and stuff.
Yeah.
And teachers, I always got in my report, Bone, he seems like he should be doing a lot better. He's very always active in class, but his results don't represent this.
Yeah.
And it's like, just because that's not how I learn.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of people don't learn.
Yeah.
And it was one of the catalysts for why I wanted to start this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, of course. And I have so much admiration for you for doing this. It's hilarious when we think about it because everyone's doing it. We're not going as crazy about it as we should be.
Yeah.
But we're literally, here's a framing of it. We are literally stealing years off all our lives, in my perspective.
Yeah.
Right? Let's cut the BS and call it what it is. We are eroding away valuable time in people's youths in particular when they could actually be contributing, and we're putting all these unnecessary obstacles and blinkers on what they're capable of. And we're making the pathways for people harder and take longer than they should be.
And let's be realistic. What's the most valuable asset in the world? Time.
Yeah.
Like ask anyone who's got as much that, people pay millions and millions to get an extra a few hours a week, but it's not possible. Yeah. And so, as you mentioned, you felt like you lost an entire year, almost 3 years of your life.
I call them 3 dead years.
Yeah, wow.
That's how I felt.
And let's play, as you mentioned, devil's advocate, because I've done entire episodes on this podcast about university. I'm not trying to, completely shit on it and take it down. Yep. Did you, obviously you said it takes 2 to tango before. Yeah. So what happened when you went into uni? Did you kind of mentioned to me before, like you didn't really take it on. You just went in and did the bare minimum.
No. Probably one of my closest friends, Scott, I hold that as a great example, right? He was the opposite to me, right? Now he's a very extroverted guy, very high energy. He went and did like the lot through uni. I did the opposite. I did the bare minimum. If I joke about it like, the 4-hour work week. I was like the 4-hour uni week. I was just like, the least I can do of it, the better. So I was all about just like, what's the least amount of time I have to be on campus? How can I arrange my tutorials so I'm there not as much, as least as possible?
No societies.
No societies.
No,
like don't waste my time with that. I don't think my uni was the best kind of socially. And I don't think my degree was the best socially because every class was kind of different people. So it wasn't like consistent friends.
Which is something I see a lot because my mum, she did occupational therapy. She was with the same people for like 4 years.
That's different.
They're still friends. Yeah. Every year they meet up. Yeah. 20, 30 years later. Yeah. And they've got those lifelong friendships. Amazing. Versus a lot of my friends, and you included, who jump, because there's so many different degrees and people are mix and mashing their degrees. Yeah. They're jumping between so many classes. You only see this person for 3 hours a week.
Yeah. So again, the contrast. So Scott, obviously our friend, did engineering, which was again the same people all the way through. He's still friends with them. A lot of them have become my friends. So I probably have more friends from his degree than I do from my degree. Yeah. And we went to different unis. It's just it's baffling when you think about it. But yeah, I had no idea what I was what uni actually was. Just completely naive. So I had no idea. It took me 2 years to realize I needed like a distinction average to actually get into honours. I just had to keep passing. So that was 2 years into the 3 years to lead up to honours. So I was like, oh damn, like I better make sure I'm not actually far off. Luckily I just wasn't that far off. I just had no idea. I had no idea it was so research based as well. So I found that very, very dry and non-interesting because there's a lot of like scientific.
And keep in mind, you love film.
Yeah,
and
it's so
film is so different.
Such a clash of
it's
my
so
energy.
Different. Yeah, it's like if you're into film and creative, and you're going into writing and research.
Yeah. So I appreciate what I've learned about the scientific method because that's very valuable. I think the disciplines, and there's a lot of people who talk about education, pedagogy now, whatever. The disciplines are generally all pretty good to master, right? But yeah, it's the opposite. Film is much more uninhibited creative, whereas the scientific report writing is all just like take your emotion out of it, report objectively.
Yeah,
what's happening. It's the polar.
You can't be one-sided.
It's the polar opposite. Yeah, it's the other end of the spectrum.
So exactly what you said. Your energy was clashing.
Statistics and
which is
big clash.
Yeah,
so
dangerous.
It is dangerous. It just didn't agree with me. Like I'd go in there feeling I've just got to get through today. And one of the proxies I think for is your life going well is the energy you have in the morning. So when you wake up in the morning now and you think, oh, today I just got to do this because that's just what I have to do today. And I'm not really that excited about it, but I just got to go get the train in there, go to my lectures. That's a poor fit. For me, a lot of my days at the moment are the opposite. Like I wake up excited for the first thing I'm doing in the morning. That's just something I've learned because of my experience. But definitely then, I was never excited to go to uni. I think that's a loss for me and the uni.
Yeah, 100%. And so, yeah, as you mentioned, you felt like you've lost 3 years of your life, not the uni's fault specifically. I think it's more that you were just completely underprepared and you had no idea what you're going into. Yeah. Society pressures you into going into university because you got the marks. You might as well do a psychology degree. You got the marks to get in. Yeah. And as you mentioned, you said you want to do psychology. Do it. You'll do psychology and you'll do film on the side. You can build up your film, do that. And you look back and you haven't done any film. No. And it's kind of going, well, what have I done? And obviously now you're in a much better place, which is great to see. And I just hope, I hope people can listen to this message and understand, don't jump into a degree. Don't just jump into something because of your parents, because of your teachers, because of society, because all your friends are doing it, because whatever it is. Research it, figure out if that's what you want to do. Yeah. Why do you want to do psychology? Yeah.
Well, even then, jumping in is a funny one because I think it's jump specifically because I jump into, and I know you jump into things all the time. I think specifically, just to highlight that point, don't jump into things that are a long commitment of money and time. And what's the exit strategy if it's not going well? Right? So probably the biggest mistake I made was it wasn't that bad that I was like, oh, I can't do this after 3, 4, 5 weeks. I know people have gone to uni for a couple of days and just like, oh, no. And I don't know if I agree with that either. Like, I don't think
you can't get
the filter's too harsh. But yeah, it wasn't painful enough. And the alternatives of what I could do instead of that weren't clear enough and obvious enough that I just didn't opt out. And that's why actually it's just like, if it's a 6 out of 10 or a 6.5 out of 10, you're just plodding along. It's not bad enough that you're like, oh, this is terrible. But it's the indifference. But yeah, it's jumping into something that's a big commitment. So basically what I said, if we were going to look at that as a contract that I was signing at the age of 18, it's basically sit down, young Joe, you know nothing about the world. What we're offering you here is just to commit the basically next 3 years of your life, the majority of that time and mental energy and capacity you have to do something which probably doesn't fully align with you. It aligns even less with you than you realize, but we're not actually going to kind of go through that with you. We're just, here's the contract and sign away, and it costs this much in debt, by the way.
And we'll take your money.
And just sign here. And I basically just sign that. So like, if you look at everything you're signing up for as a contract, it's like, well, how much time, how much money am I actually committing into this? And, what's my opportunity cost? What are the actual alternatives? Go into it. My
Sorry.
My thing is like, be informed.
Opportunity cost, right?
Yeah.
I want to talk about this. So for anyone listening, do you just explain what opportunity cost is?
Absolutely. Opportunity cost is basically in a literal sense, the opportunities, okay, that are available to you that you may not realize, but they're the avenues you close off by doing, one particular thing.
Yes.
Right? So, for example, those 3 years, maybe I could have traveled more, okay? I could have made 200 meaningful friends of young creative people in film.
Yeah.
I could have made documentaries. That could have helped me build my profile and connections in film and blah, blah, blah. Those are all opportunity costs that I kind of made those real by narrowing in my path and caving into fear. It wasn't like uni completely took me away. A lot of it was fear as well. And
let's talk about the contract, right?
Yeah.
So you said, so it's going to cost you 3 years of your life, mental, energy, all that, and this X amount of money. We're not factoring the opportunity costs. Let's go down to the next page of the contract.
Yeah.
It actually says, this also means by signing this contract, you are now not going to make any more films.
Yeah.
You're not going to do any documentaries. You're not going to enter the film industry, and you're not going to do what you love.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, this is your story. Not everyone's going to be like this.
Of course.
But we always forget to factor in the opportunity cost.
Yep.
And it's so important that we understand, I'll speak to people and they'll be like, I did an accounting degree. I don't use that degree, but it was really good.
Yeah.
And they'll kind of justify in their head. I'll say,
they will.
Of course you're going to learn something in 3 years. If you do anything for 3 years, you're going to learn something. Yeah. I'm saying you could have learned more if you went to this or this or this.
Yeah. So ROI is a very powerful term for me these days. There's a lot of writing on ROI. ROI, return on investment. I don't know if that language resonates with like 18-year-olds, but maybe any like marketing students or people who are into investing, stuff like that. But it's a simple concept. It's like, if I have 2 opportunities here, right? What's the ROI on each? And you want to compare the return you get on the same commitment of time. So say the same amount of time I put into uni that I could have been putting into something else, right? So say maybe making a documentary where I got to learn lots. It's looking at what's the return you're going to get back. So the bias, right, is to settle for a lesser return, right? So it's like watching a movie, right? If you watch a movie that's like a 7 out of 10, you're like, well, I don't regret watching that movie. Like it was good. Yeah. But like you could have watched a 10 out of 10.
That's the opportunity cost.
That's the opportunity cost. Yeah. That 3 out of 10 difference, that's just a simple way of understanding. Like, if you're gonna sit down at night, you're not going to choose a 7 out of 10 movie if a 10 out of 10 is available. So the question, I think maybe if there's young people listening, is what's a 7 out of 10 you may have accepted, and is there a 10 out of 10 available?
It's also that number 7 and 6. It's painful enough to not be
the trap.
Enjoyable, but it's not painful enough to leave. And so, as you mentioned, you're just kind of coasting along.
Yeah.
You're not loving it, you're not hating it, but you're quite comfortable.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. My dad, bless him. And he's been very successful in business. He's done very well. He studied architecture, which is a very, very difficult degree. Yeah. Credit to him. He did it. Like, he finished it. I think he got his sister to make his models for him, but leave that aside. And then, he still worked in the building industry, but he didn't actually become an architect. So his kind of lesson is like, no, well, uni's useful because what I learned from architecture actually can apply to what I do. So that was actually, worthwhile. But again, I think that's, a bit of like a bias. Yeah. Because
you're trying to justify in your head.
Yeah. But the other thing is like, yes, what's useful is having what like Tim Ferriss calls like a specialized generalist. It's like you've got 2 things that are rarely found together, but are very powerful together. You know what I mean? It's not, so if you could have spent 3 years doing that, he didn't actually need to graduate to kind of get all of that.
He probably could have learned enough architectural knowledge within a year.
Yeah, everyone should. That's why I think everyone should be multidisciplinary, right? Even if you're in business or in film, you'll probably benefit from understanding what the scientific method is. Like 100%. It's amazing. I mean, we're doing a project now which uses some of those principles. It's like you have a hypothesis, right? This is an idea I have, right? Even if you're making a film, like I think this will be a good film. Well, just because I think it's a good film, does that mean the world's going to think it's a good film?
Let's look at the
All
numbers.
right. How can I test this hypothesis? Right. All right. And then you come up with like, all right, you show this version to this group of people. You show a slightly different version to another group of people, just like a scientific study. And then, which one's more popular? It's like, I thought that one would be, but blah, blah, blah. So understanding different disciplines actually gives you so much more for whatever vertical you actually want to go down.
But we're saying you don't need 3 years of psychology degree to understand that.
You can read books, you can watch videos. I mean, so maybe for my dad, the uni was the best pathway. There was no YouTube back then. Right? I don't think he came from a family where they read heaps of books. Probably didn't appeal to him. He probably didn't have that habit. Maybe it was the best way for him. It's worked out pretty well. Doesn't mean that's the best ROI for my generation.
Exactly.
For our generation.
And
right? And we now live in a different world.
We live in I say this all the time, we live in a completely different world. Yeah. I think you read this in my chapter that I'm writing, the biggest mistake, the biggest problem with listening to our parents is that our parents are giving us advice that they wish they had when they were younger, back in 1980 or 1990. It's not 1990 anymore. No. It's 2020. No. And everyone is going to university, which means they're raising the prices, which means your degree's worth less because everyone has a degree. So how do you stand out? The degree used to stand out because, 10% of people went to uni. Both my parents were the first in their generation to go to uni. Now everyone goes. And so, and this is kind of linking back to society's standards on us, which obviously you have experienced. But kind of talking about this chapter, so just a little bit of preference to the listeners. We're writing a book right now. 9 people are writing a book. We're all doing a chapter each. Basically, what advice would we give to our 18-year-old self? Probably the age of the average listener on this show. And we can dive into that a little bit later. But I'd love to just know, why have you got into this? Like, obviously you've gone from psychology degree, you went into real estate, and now you're writing a book for young people. Like, what's going on here? How has this happened?
I think, a lot of my nonprofit journey was very powerful, meaningful. And I think it was the first time I really connected with other young people. Right? We did some work in Nepal. And I looked at that part of my life as a huge transition moment. This was like a transition from like being stuck, being afraid, taking the easy way out, going to do uni when maybe I shouldn't have, I don't know. And it created this non-linear, opened up this whole world that I couldn't have even known about. That was, what are people's lives like who live in rural villages in Nepal? And what I learned about life there has helped me live my life better here. I had no idea I was going to learn that. And then I had no idea that was going to make me more interested in business and really love, business is a great tool. I never knew this was one of my options. I was looking for a backup to film and using the UAC book as like, these are the options available to you.
God.
That might be 2% of the options for how you can kind of go about your career. So I'm looking at like, there's the non-linear, right? So uni makes sense in a linear way only, really, principally, right? So it's like, I want to become a lawyer. I need to, have the certification to do it. Uni provides the certification. Fantastic. I'll opt into uni. How do you opt into the path of, going and starting this random nonprofit in Nepal that's just going to snowball into this other learning about life that's going to make you interested in business? That's not obvious. That's not linear. So the question was like, how do we kind of convey that value about the non-linear, those non-linear options? How do we kind of seed that for people in the way it was done for me purely by accident?
Because school doesn't teach us the non-linear options. And more often than not, your parents won't teach you either because they grew up with only linear options. Yeah. So that's what they think the options are.
Well, the great irony is that a lot of them live non-linear, have had non-linear kind of things happen to them, but people don't actually recognize it. So, for example, my dad, his dad was a property developer. So when he left uni, he was intending on becoming an architect. If his dad hadn't been a property developer and said, come work with me for a bit till you get your job, and then my dad just started liking that anyway and decided to stick with it, that's non-linear because he wasn't intending to do that. That wasn't an outcome he planned in advance. And that's why openness is so important. So this book is really the start of a new chapter for me personally, in my life, work, whatever, which is really about cultivating that experiential learning that I had, me and my friends had, which changed the quality of our relationships. It changed how happy and fulfilled we were. It opened our eyes to the world and so much more, and compounding opportunity and learning. That's what I'd love to see happen for more people. So this book is basically, the first opportunity to do that. Like, we started the kind of umbrella company Do Hat Labs, which is all about just making these kind of little projects happen.
Yeah.
Projects like this book, bringing people together. We did a retreat. We kind of deep dived into a lot of things and got to know each other really well. And then we kind of execute this book in a short period of time. And then obviously we picked the topic of the book, advice to our 18-year-old selves, because it just fits in with that whole theme.
Yeah.
Because that's why you can look at all these non-linear journeys, and anything great that has happened to me, I think, in the last 8 years since I left school has come from a non-linear moment, something I couldn't have predicted or planned in advance.
I think everyone would say this as well.
I think so, because opportunity lives in uncertainty. That's where it is. My metaphor is normally, you can't rediscover America. When I went to America as a 5-year-old on holiday, there were no plaudits. No one celebrated me for it, because Christopher Columbus was the first guy to discover America. But ironically, he didn't know what America was when he set out. I mean, there was nothing called America to discover.
He's just going out to discover.
There was no map. There was no full map. I'm sure it'd been partially contoured or whatever, but he was using a rough guide. It's like, how do you know you're going to find something when you get there? Where am I even going? What is there?
Yeah.
So I love that metaphor for each of our own lives, right? You can't rediscover America. You can't follow the maps of other people. You have a unique discovery. And that lives in the unknown, because if it wasn't in the unknown, it would already be discovered. Therefore, it's not your discovery.
Yeah.
It's someone else's.
I find that exciting.
I think it is.
I mean, first of all, you can follow like a blueprint and on stuff to help get you there, but it's got to be customized for yourself. Yeah. And so I find it exciting not knowing where I'm going to be in 12 months, 6 months. Yeah. My life is so different every 12 months. I'm like, I got no idea where I'm going to be. Yeah. And I know some people love the fact that they know every year they're going to be in this house, they're going to be living here, they're going to be doing this job or whatever. And that's very safe and secure, and that's great. But for me, and I think a lot of our generation have itchy feet. We don't want to live in the same place. We don't live in the same country. We don't want to live, we don't want to do the same job. I think they predict the average person our age will be working 25 jobs throughout their life.
I think further than that, I think the future looks like everyone is a freelancer. Everyone works for themselves and only consults and contracts out to other companies. And that's really in the digital age and the gig economy, I think that's very much the direction we're headed in. We've already got platforms 100%. That are all facilitating, freelancers from all over. I use them for my real estate business. I've got people help me from Macedonia to India to Pakistan, all over the world, because everything's cloud-based, everything's digital, and those people can basically work from themselves and contract their service to multiple companies. So the question is, what's your skill that you could contract to multiple companies for anyone listening, or what skill you're going to cultivate? And I think the theme to circle back to is uncertainty is opportunity, right? To make an invention, whatever, has to have never been done before. Yeah. But the obstacle to uncertainty is obviously fear. We're typically uncertainty averse, which is what you're talking about. Like, it's very easy to get comfortable within a certain lifestyle, and that's fine. I still think within a very humble everyday lifestyle, there is still uniqueness to be found. For example, no child is the same and no parent is the same. So if you're just going to try and parent your child like every other parent, I'm not sure you would even get the best outcome. Really, you need to be able to be the parent, I think, not as a parent, who responds best to your children. I have 2 younger brothers, and we're different. We have lots of overlaps, but we're very different. We need different things. So if you're going to try and apply cookie cutter approaches to everything, including parenting, it's not going to work. So I think that uniqueness comes, but
it's that discomfort precedes victory, right? Or as Yes Theory, their clothing brand is seek discomfort. Yeah. If you seek discomfort, or if anything that's uncomfortable, you should probably do. It's going to be uncertain. Yeah. You're not going to like it, but it's probably going to lead to opportunity.
I think so.
And that opportunity is going to open up doors, which
Yeah.
kind of links into this thing that we talk about, the 1,000 doors.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is so powerful. And I really want to deep dive into this because I think this concept will change your life, literally.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that as a woo just
you
can apply this concept, it'll change your life.
Yeah, I think so. The 1,000 doors. My pattern now is I just find metaphors and frameworks for all the stuff that I think is important to learn, principally for myself. And the biggest one I think maybe is the 1,000 doors kind of metaphor, which is all about this non-linear. And it's based on the fact that if we take a step back for a second to explain this, like how you and I have come to be sitting here today talking to each other, right? So how, like, where did this come from? So we were on the retreat together. To get onto the retreat together, we actually had to be introed. And we were introed by a guy called Andrew Reese.
Who was episode 8 on this podcast?
You had him on? Yeah. Cool. And then I met him very randomly as well because I was part of his podcast launch with a couple of our other friends. And I was only on his podcast launch because I saw him commenting on something on Facebook looking for an assistant. And I just noticed it and I sent him a message. Like, this is a place you can find an assistant. And, you know, he followed that and then we got talking and blah, blah. He invited me to his podcast. So, and then I can't even fully remember like how you might have randomly met him.
Well, I mean, once again, mine goes back miles because I mean, I had him on the podcast, which is how we met. He DM'd me. I don't even know how he found me.
Yeah.
He said, DM me. He said we should have a chat. We had a quick Zoom.
Yeah.
And then I had him on the podcast. But we could go back even further. Why did I start a podcast? Because of this. And this goes back so far.
That's what I mean.
So it's probably been over 1,000 doors for us to meet.
That's what I mean. So that's what I meant. There's the analogy of the doors is that there's all these random doors opening up. All right. Again, they're non-linear. Like, we could not have planned or plotted in advance. I couldn't have thought, gee, I'd really love to be on the Driven Young podcast and go, okay, what I'll do is I'll find a guy on Facebook who I don't know if he knows Byron Dempsey, but I'll try and help him find an assistant. And then I'll try and incentivize him to invite me to his podcast launch and then try and motivate him to introduce me to Byron, again, not knowing that he knows him yet. You know, it's ridiculous, right?
Impossible.
So this is what I mean by 1,000 doors is that you find yourself in a room, one room at a time in your life. And in that room, maybe there's 4 or 5 doors as a metaphor for opportunities or things you could opt into. You don't know what lies behind those doors. And that's what I mean about uncertainty. You're not sure what's going to lie after.
And it's easy not to open the doors.
It's easy to not open the doors because you're like, what do I do? But the longer you spend in the room, the less doors you're able to get through in your life. Again, it's not whatever a door is to you, whatever a worthwhile opportunity is to you, who knows? But what you will find is that by regularly going through doors and opening doors, you get into these amazing rooms. Literally today, I'm in an amazing room. I'm with a driven young guy. Oh, Freudian slip there, driven young.
Yeah, there you go.
Pun intended. You know, have an interesting conversation. Maybe it will help one person, 2 people, 3 people today, right? And none of it could have been planned.
Maybe someone listening will go, who's this Joe guy? And they'll reach out to you. And then that's you a lifelong partnership. Or who knows what it could be.
Maybe they'll make my life infinitely better.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe I'll get more out of this than anyone.
Maybe nothing will happen.
Maybe nothing will happen.
And that's fine.
But some shots, you know, don't come off. But the ones that do, they kind of compound. So that 1,000 doors metaphor is all about how you might turn down one door that's in front of you now, like helping someone on Facebook find an assistant. But what you don't realize is that there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way. These are 1,000 doors that lie all the way beyond that you're actually passing up. So I don't mind if you do that. I can't force anyone through a door is my metaphor. But my mission is to show you the door and open it for you. That's the mission for me, what I'm doing in my life right now. That's what I try and condense it down into. I can't, this comes from nonprofit work, which there's a lot of lessons there about you can't force aid on people. You can only open the door for them. And if they want to walk through, you make it easy for them to do so. You lower the barrier. But I find it painful when I see people who don't recognize the first door, or they see it, they don't recognize what's behind it, and they say,
and
not
it's
for
too
me.
uncomfortable. I mean, a classic door for me is literally like, I barely knew you when we went to this retreat.
Yeah.
I didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
Andrew just said, meet this guy. We had like a 10-minute Zoom. We were like, oh,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is great.
yeah. You were like, I'm in.
You should come on the retreat. I was like, yeah, I'm in. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know it was about
Yeah.
how aligned it was with my values and everything. I just said yes.
Yeah, wow.
Because I was like, there's 1,000 doors there.
Yeah.
Then I met you. I had Tyler on the podcast. I'm probably going to have Marvin on the podcast. I'm
Yeah,
probably gonna
yeah,
have half the people there like are really great friendships. Who,
Yeah.
And then each of those have 1,000 doors behind them.
Yeah.
Right, so there's like that's like a 10,000 door
and
thing
so
I just said yes to.
Here's a sneak peek for your listeners, because this will be my book about this, but I'll give in advance. I maintain right now that the best way to open doors for yourself is to open doors for other people.
Nice, yeah.
And you can just let that sit in your mind for a bit if you're listening. That's a very positive sum game. Again, maybe that's a bit of a technical term because I didn't know what that was when I was 18. So I'm going to unpack that. It's like, it doesn't, when positive sum game is where if one person wins, everyone wins.
Yeah.
Right? And an example will come to mind, but the opposite is like a zero sum game. Like to become top of English, right, in your school, that means someone else who wants to be top of English can't be top of English, right?
And there's going to be someone at the bottom.
Yeah, and someone's got to come last. So that's a zero-sum game. Like to win, someone's got to lose. But my impression of the world, and this is just my opinion, is that our modern world does not have to be a zero-sum game, like someone coming last, someone coming first.
GDP, war.
Everyone can come first. And that 1,000 doors system I'm trying to push out there now and promote, because it works for me, is all about that, right? So if something great happens to Byron, he gets great guests, right, that he met because of the retreat I ran, that's great. And then now I've got all these people I can do cool stuff with, right? I'm already doing some cool stuff with them, but then those people will help me if I need it, right? It'll come back to me, but it's also become better for them. Great relationships and connections with people are that's the 1,000 doors for you. Like
relationships is everything, right?
If I need something, like I know you guys are there, and that's from very simple actions. It's not complicated. So yeah, the quality of the doors get better as you go.
Yeah.
And again, let's play devil's advocate. Not every door, you're not going to like what you find behind every door.
Oh, of course.
So we should talk about that for a sec.
Yeah.
So you might have hated the retreat. But again, we come back to that ROI thing. What would you have lost?
And what's the opportunity cost?
Sitting
in your bed watching TikTok all day. Well, what was I going to do that weekend anyway?
Yeah.
Maybe see some friends. Not much, really.
Yeah.
Very, very low opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Like low opportunity cost, potential high rewards.
Yeah.
Even if it was crap, I haven't lost much. I haven't lost 2 days of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's been very powerfully said. And even if you find you don't like what's behind some doors, they help you make decisions better in the future. This is the important thing about not being worried about making a bad decision, because you wouldn't deliberately make a bad decision, but I'm here to tell you that you don't have to be worried if you do make a bad decision when you're making it. So if you're sitting here thinking uni or no uni next year, listen to all these driven people who say maybe uni is not the best, but I feel like doing it. Well, you got to listen to yourself, but you got to have your exit strategy, I think, but then you'll know. So for me, I have those 3 dead years, right? Basically using this metaphor, I was in one room for 3 years.
Yeah.
Not taking any doors.
And that's because you weren't joining societies. You weren't taking full advantage of the university.
Those things could have been
lifestyle.
doors, right? I could have met amazing people that would have unlocked things for me. But okay, so then what's happened for me is I have a heightened sense of opportunity cost now. So I'm not someone who will waste my time on things now because of that pain and that regret in the past. And that's what I mean about even if you screw up, you don't really lose. You can just kind of slingshot back.
Yeah.
You can kind of turn that into a positive. So you are now in this position, if this works for you, where you don't actually have to be worried about anything, including a bad decision.
Which is freeing.
It's freeing. You can just go through. Not everything's going to come off, but you know that if you keep opening doors, something will come off because of the maths.
Yeah, you can't. It's like if you if you apply for 50 jobs and you're qualified,
yeah,
you're going to have someone respond.
It'd be very hard not to.
The numbers are just there.
Yeah.
Kevin Hart pitched 400 times before he got to go on stage.
Oh yeah.
Martin Luther King, his big speech in front of thousands of people about, Black Lives Matter and everything.
Yeah.
He did that so many times before it was televised and he was famous.
Absolutely.
He did that in front of 3 or 4 people at churches.
Yeah. And the story I heard about that is he almost didn't say the I have the dream line, that a lady called Mahalia Jackson or something, I think she was a singer, was behind him, and she was shouting out, "Tell him about the dream, Marvin. Tell him about the dream."
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about opening doors for other people. So if that's, I read that in the book. So if that's true, because I haven't heard that before, I'm not sure if that's like, does that mean it's wrong? Or, but I love the message of that as well. Like, we're so close from not going through a crucial door. Like, if I just didn't message that guy about a virtual assistant,
I know,
right, Andrew, like, I don't have half of the amazing friends I have now who live a similar kind of headspace that I do. Like, I have lots of friends. In terms of people who are in the same kind of headspace, what we want to do with our lives, how we want to kind of run between projects, blah, 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 all this exciting stuff. I don't think I'd have half of those people right now. I mean, I did a course in the US run by like Seth Godin, where I met 85 people from around the world off Andrew's recommendation as well. So he's been an amazing door in my life, and he's had to do very little. He's just been like, come to this podcast launch, do this course, talk to this guy.
That's it.
That's simple. And that's what I mean about the best way to open doors for you is to open doors for other people.
Because now we want to help open doors for him in return.
Absolutely.
Anything he says.
What could he ask me that I wouldn't do?
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing. So this is stuff that's not obvious. It's very hard for people to teach. So I don't blame parents, schools, universities for not kind of being able to give people, because this is non-linear. This is why we're doing the Do Hat Labs, these projects that talk about Do Hat Labs. And, this book is just one example. That's why we're doing it that way. It's a random kind of unstructured project, like all these people who probably wouldn't write a book, but we're going to write a book. But then, what kind of doors does that open up? Especially for people who, so you're a rare person in this little group because, you already have the podcast. You're doing a lot of things with a lot of courage already. But there's a lot of people that, for that opportunity, who don't see themselves as someone who can be entrepreneurial and creative if they want to be.
This is what I call it the imposter monster.
Yeah.
It's this thing in your head going, who am I to start a podcast? I think people have this illusion of me. I just started the podcast. It took me I'm on TikTok now, which has been huge for me. Yeah. I didn't post for a year. And I'm going, I hit 100,000 followers in 2 months. Imagine if I started 10 months ago. Yeah. I could be on 1 million.
Opportunity cost.
Yeah. And it was and it's just because I didn't want to put myself out there, especially on TikTok. It's vicious. They can be very cruel. Yeah. And so it's so many people are scared. I'm scared to start a podcast. I spent 8 months planning it. Yeah. I could have just launched it. Yeah. And even then I launched it when I wasn't ready. You just got to go. You just got to
ready.
Beat up that imposter monster in your head. And say, who am I who's to do this? Yeah. Because everyone suffers from that. And it's just understanding.
I don't think it's just about people who make content. I think if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor,
everyone has it.
And I think the non-linear thing still applies, because who are the best lawyers? Right? I know that's often a really cop-out example I use, because most people want to become a lawyer, but they don't really want to become a lawyer. But then I think about who are the greatest lawyers. You've got she wasn't a lawyer, but Erin Brockovich. You've got I forget his name, the guy who started Amnesty International. From literature, you've got To Kill a Mockingbird, Atticus Finch.
Yes, right.
They're actually people who stick their neck out. Even in the linear, kind of career path that you can just progress through without having to stick your neck out.
Kind of call us entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
so
entrepreneurs.
Entrepreneurs is a great term for anyone who's studying at a job, or they're studying or they're in a job, but they're still kind of being entrepreneurial within that job. Yeah, and I think it's the future of the workplace is having entrepreneurs. And so they've got a bit of freedom. They probably don't have to work 5 days a week. Yeah. So long as they get their work done, they can get it done. They can kind of build a bit of personal brand within the business. Yeah. Just a bit more flexibility.
Wow. Companies are very, a lot of companies have an old-fashioned mindset and a zero-sum game, whereas it really is a positive-sum game. In real estate, it's an industry I've worked in for a bit, it's very, very rife. Yeah. Real estate offices are because you might have, whoever's listening, you might have a face from signboards in your area. They might not actually run their own business. They probably work for a local business. But then you've got the people who run those local real estate businesses scared that they're going to take all the clients and run off. But really, the better they do and the happier they are to stay working with you, the more successful they be. The less reason they'd have to leave you. And I think any big company can work the same. And I think we're moving away from fixed, like you work 9 to 5 and this and that. As we get more technology to leverage the way we can work and be useful without having to be present for certain hours in certain places. I mean, people I work with now, if they're working with me or for me or whatever capacity, like I don't care how much time it takes as long as it gets done.
As long as,
outcomes.
Same with me. I don't give a crap if you, like, and 9 to 5 model is so broken as well. How many people work, what are the chances you need exactly 8 hours a day to get your work done?
Man.
It's like a 0%
I have
chance
the most
you need exactly
amazing
8 hours
lifestyle now.
Yeah.
Which is not 9 to 5 at all. So like you, I kind of get up early now, like that whole 5:30 club mindset. Like I get up, I mainly like the first 4 hours of the day from like 6 a.m. are just writing. Like I love writing. I'll do it for an audience of none. One of the concepts we kind of talked about, like I just don't care if no one ever reads it. I just love to do it. But that's work for me at the moment.
But that's what you need to focus on. Audience of none. What would you do to an audience of none? You know, Steven Spielberg, he'd make films for no one if no one saw him because he loves making films. Find anyone who's really passionate about what they do. I would do this podcast for no one if I had no listeners. And when I started, I had no listeners. Before TikTok, I was on like 50 or 60 listeners an episode. Half of them are probably like my friends and family. And half of them probably only clicked on it for like 10 seconds and then pissed off. I haven't looked at the analytics, but like there was an audience of none. So what would you do if no one was watching or listening?
It's very important. I only really thought of that because I did that US course and I used that question. A lot of people found it really resonated with them. So I was like, oh, there must be something here. And it's, an audience of none. Yeah, that's on my blog and stuff as well, which is like basically what you said. Like I talked about writing. When you'll perform it for no one, when the only applause that you'll listen for at the end is your own, what job would you do? What performance? Is it a song? Is it a podcast? Is it being a lawyer? Is it being a doctor?
Yeah.
Would you be a doctor if no one ever said thank you to you?
And you didn't get the prestige.
Yeah. Right? And you didn't get the money.
Yeah.
All right? I'm not saying that that's viable and, you know, being able to pay your bills is different. But hypothetical, because what that reveals to you, that question, what would you perform for an audience of none, is what are you intrinsically interested in? And that means, what are you interested in just because it comes from you? It doesn't get power from like what validation you get from other people or from money, which we call extrinsic motivators. A good friend of mine from the course, Liam, he loves this whole audience of none concept. He made a video about it. And he's like, this is something we should be talking about in schools. 100%. This is career, how we plot careers and make choices.
It's honestly as simple as that.
We're not good at cultivating what young people want to do intrinsically. Everyone's like, well, is that going to pay enough? Like, oh yeah, that's a good profession. It's very respected.
Status.
It's all extrinsic. It's status. It's money.
Ego.
It's what they think of it. No one is being very good at the moment at helping you find what are you just interested in that you perform for an audience of none. What actually aligns with you? Because the ironic thing is, that's probably going to be the thing that makes you the most money. Yeah. That's probably going to be the thing that gets you the most status and approval. It doesn't mean you can fall into the traps of loving that about it, because you can get lost, I think. But one of the guys writing the book with us, Josh, is the best example of this, because he didn't want to go into, I think, his uni degree, but he's like, it took me 7 years to do my uni degree because I wasn't interested in it. So we don't factor that in. Oh, well, if you're not really interested in it, you're not going to actually be as good at it.
No way. You can't compete with people who are like, you know, who are intrinsically.
You can't compete with me for writing.
Yeah, because you
can't. I'm playing.
Yeah.
If you decided, I'm going to, you know, write more, better, whatever than that guy, whatever, but you can't. I'm playing. You're working. And that's. I'm like a kid in a playpen.
Yeah.
He's just been like, yeah, you can play here as long as you want, as long as you eat and whatever your physical needs are, and you can just keep going.
A great example, when we kind of spoke about it on the retreat, and I actually put this in my chapter, was the amount of like Australians, Americans, any developed country, Western societies typically will like go to Africa to build a school, or go to Nepal to build a school or do something, and that's great. But let's talk about this intrinsically. If you couldn't take your phone and you couldn't get photos with little African boys and little African girls, would you go? Would you go just purely to build the school? Go even deeper. If you couldn't take your phone and you couldn't even tell anyone you were going, would you still go? Probably not. And the ironic part is, these photos that they're taking of these African kids are happier than most kids in Australia or America.
Oh, man.
Because you're not comparing their lives to thousands of people on social media.
I've got... this conversation could open up a whole can of worms. I did the nonprofit thing. We shut down the nonprofit for reasons to do with like the culture around that is, in my opinion, toxic and actually net harmful. I'm not going to open that can of worms, but I'll come back to that intrinsic point about just because there's not money involved with being a volunteer, you don't get paid. It's very, very socially acceptable and reinforced. It's not enough to make it good. What we found, our opinion of ourselves at that time was like, we were really interested in that problem we were trying to work on. Like, there was nothing cooler. A school group came, my old school group came, and the teacher running that, looking after those school kids was like, look at Joe, he got a good mark, but he's here doing this, helping people, when he could be doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
This is not fake modesty or anything, but I was just thinking, from my perspective, what have I turned down to be here? What, sitting in class?
Yeah.
Doing some internship somewhere, selling my soul for like all the hours, like, you know, trading my hours just to try and get ahead, corporate ladder, you know, doing real estate stuff. There is nothing cooler than like being here in Nepal, working on a real project, like internationally. Like, that was the coolest thing in the world. I was like, I didn't sacrifice or pass anything up. This is a really compelling problem. But yeah, the praise, audience of none. That's why I love that point, because even praise from other people, I think, can be a real trap. That's the high achiever thing I kind of think a lot of people go through. I definitely felt at school.
Well, you must have got, you know, when the feeling you got when you said, I'm studying psychology. Oh, wow.
Man, it wasn't even good enough for people.
Really?
I chose the backup, and then people were like, no, you shouldn't do psychology. You should do law or medicine. Right. It's like, why be a psychologist if you can be a psychiatrist? Which is like, you have to do a medicine degree.
You got the marks.
Yeah, you got the marks.
Might as well do it. Who cares if you're happy or not?
Yeah, so that's funny about, like, I wrote a line in my draft yesterday about people think we're crazy when we listen to the voices in our head, but not crazy when we listen to the voices out in the world.
Yeah.
I thought that was quite ironic.
That's exactly what we've just spoken about.
The voices out in the world will never be happy if you're only going to listen to them. And they still weren't happy when I was taking the backup road and compromising. Maybe it wasn't compromising my dream, because I really should have and could have had time to do some film stuff, but it certainly wasn't the best ROI to come back to that conversation. It's funny when I look back, that still wasn't good enough.
Yeah, no, and that's just kind of the way.
What I mean, it wasn't prestigious enough.
And that's the way, because and it links back to that high status thing. Like, why do you want to be a doctor? Why do you want to be any of these traditional linear pathways? Yeah. Do you want to be a doctor because you love the chemistry, because you love the math, the science, you love helping people? A lot of people will say, I want to be a doctor because I want to help people, which is great. But there are so many ways you can help people. It doesn't have to be saving their life on the table. You can help people before they ever enter that. You could go to Nepal to help people. I feel like I'm helping people with a podcast. I'd like to think.
I'd say you are.
And that's, I love helping people as well.
I'd say you're helping more people with this podcast than we were able to help in Nepal.
Really?
To give you perspective.
Yeah, right.
Because we only worked in one very small community.
But how impressive is it?
Oh, man.
Like, if we took Joe, who's in Nepal on the ground fighting, or Byron, who's sitting in an air-conditioned room doing a podcast, this feels like we'd be helping more people.
Man, that's why you can't listen to praise. You can't listen to praise or criticism. You can vet them as feedback, right? I think all advice is just bad advice. Just depends how bad it is. Yeah. Right? Maybe there's some very not that bad advice. But same of opinions. Like, man, we got all sorts of praise for doing that stuff. There was no shortage of it. Everyone loved me. Even though I wasn't the guy in Nepal. Basically what I did, let's just be honest. I ran a lot of meetings here in Australia with like the volunteer. Like, we didn't really achieve much. Like, it was all happening in Nepal. I wasn't living there. I went like 2 or 3 times. I was involved strategically. That's probably the biggest actual contribution I had. And support basically for my mate who was living there.
Which is still important, right?
Still important. But it was a small role, but I got a disproportionate amount of the credit.
Yes.
I'm very happy to admit that, right? I got a very disproportionate amount of the credit. And we changed our model, what we're doing, because like, oh, that's kind of, we're building schools, and we're like, oh, you know what, we should actually start a business, and the business actually helped more people than making schools did.
What if you, through Dahoot Labs, help people come on the podcast, you help people realize this, and then as a result, they go start a business in Nepal or something.
Yeah.
And now
people don't look at the secondary.
Yeah, now you've opened up doors to all these people, and they're doing impacts on the world.
Doors. You don't have to trace. You don't have to trace everything, but that's it's just funny how like with nonprofit stuff, I was getting a lot of praise, but we changed our model. People didn't know what we were doing, but they'd still be like, it's such good work you're doing.
Yeah.
And like, you don't even know what I'm
doing.
We
could be in Nepal doing,
you think I'm building schools still? Like, people don't know. It's just like, it flags. So yeah, I think this conversation is really about that, that intrinsic. And so there's reasons to do stuff. There's money is one. There's status is a common one. There's the social approval and praise, right? But I don't think any of them are completely reliable on their own. They can be a means to an end. But I think the number one is like, are you intrinsically interested in it?
Aligned.
Is this an audience of none for you? If not, doesn't mean you can't do it. But like, I think everyone should have something that they would perform for no one.
And long term,
it doesn't have to be your full-time job, but
yeah, exactly.
Maybe like my brother loves gaming, right? Okay. I don't know if you can really make that much of a career out of it, but like,
it's the same as sport. You can make millions.
You got to allow the time for it. So if you love sport, right?
Tiny
Sport's a great example. Like I love soccer, right? I'm not a professional soccer player. I'm never going to be. But if it's that important, if it's an audience of none for me, I should make time for it. Make sure my lifestyle fits around that. So I don't know if there's one magical career you can pick out of a UAC book that'll give you a fulfilling life. Not sure. For some people, if it is, great, because your life's easier. But some things are maybe not monetizable that are really important to you. And this is career advice you're never going to get.
I don't make money off the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm almost onto this is the 30th episode or something.
Yeah.
Or 33 or something. I don't know. I'm up to like 30 episodes. Been doing this for almost 12 months. Yeah. I've made not only have I not made a single dollar, it's cost me like at least 2,000 hours.
Yeah.
I've been working on this 10 hours a day. Yeah. Along with other stuff to keep me money coming in.
A careers advisor is never going to tell you to do this then.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about non-linear. But then this could open doors for you that could be like, who knows? I'm sure it will. So
anyway, sorry, we've got to wrap up.
No, that's great.
Conscious of time and
great
everything.
Conversation, Dave.
But yeah, I always get stuck in this. But
of course,
before we wrap up, one final conversation.
Yeah.
What would be your number one piece of advice for your 18-year-old self?
Oh, wow.
I ask every guest this question. You just happen to be writing a chapter about it.
I happen to be writing a chapter about it.
So if it could
that's
be
a good
one
little teaser
thing.
then. If it could be one thing, for the sake of, unfortunately for the sake of repeating what we've talked about.
That's fine.
It's just that I think I needed to start with that audience of none. I say something a little bit different in the chapter. But really, because of like the big picture of how it all kind of worked out. So I was like, I really needed it to go that way. But it was really that audience of none because I was very afraid. I was scared of figuring out I wasn't actually good at film. I didn't realize I just need to start being bad and get better. And when you care about your audience of none and just doing it for yourself first, and doesn't matter, everything you do after that's a bonus. That's what I need to hear. Because then I would have just done small things and then just slowly gotten better. And I would have helped people that way. But now we can help people a different way. But I think that would be it.
Love it. Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And if anyone wants to find out more, read any of this blogs. You dissect audience and none. You dissect everything we've spoken about today in longer form blog posts. Where can they find you? Yeah.
So my personal website is www.withjoewehbe. wehbe.com. It's also, the link for that's on my Instagram, and Instagram is @with_Joe Wehbe.
Yep.
But I'm connected with Byron, and that's
links in the bio and everything.
That's all of it. Yeah. But that's it. A lot of blogs, a lot of all that stuff and more. But I just hope that there's a lot of people out there who can kind of, more than anything, rather than listen to me, find their, voice and start opening doors for themselves. And by opening doors for others.
Open doors for others and open doors for yourself. That's one of the key takeaways.
Yeah. But thanks, man. I really enjoyed,
No, thanks for coming
hashing
on.
it out.
Yeah, I had a great chat. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Byron.
That's it for this episode of the Driven Young podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. That means the world to me. And if you got some value out of it, please shoot me a message on Instagram or reach out to me. Or I would love for you to leave a rating or review on this podcast. So make sure you are subscribed, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.